Welcome to the Food Junkies Podcast. Here, we aim to provide you with the experience, strength, and hope of professionals actively working on the front lines in the field of food addiction. The purpose of our show is to educate you, the listener, and increase overall awareness about food addiction as a disease with abstinence as the solution. Here, we talk about all things recovery. Most importantly, how to thrive rather than just survive. So stay positive, make a change for yourself, tell others about your change, and hopefully the message will spread.
Happy Friday, Food Junkies listeners. Okay, Vera and Clarissa were able to sit down with Dr. Tro Kalayjian of the LowCARB MD podcast and so much more. And today they talk about his personal story, addiction, eating disorder, obesity. They talk about his professional journey, how he separates dogma from personal needs and addiction recovery. He talks about his program, the results of his program, how effective the program has been. Using the word addiction in the program and screening immediately. They talk about empowering patients, GLP medications like Ozempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro. They talk about the LowCARB MD podcast, some of Tro's passion projects, the future of bariatric medicine, and of course, our signature question. Welcome, Dr. Kalayjian.
Welcome to the Food Junkies Podcast. I am your co-host today, along with Clarissa Kennedy. Today, we are speaking with Dr. Tro Kalayjian, co-host of the well-known LowCARB MD podcast. He is an obesity physician who gets food addiction. Indeed, it is his mission to address it before all other treatments using his low-carb approach. Dr. Tro is a board-certified internal medicine and obesity physician with a focus on food addiction, diabetes, hypertension, and lipid management. His enlightened approach stems from the fact that he had his own issues with weight and eventually lost 150 pounds. Using his success as a guide, he decided to ditch the traditional model of obesity medicine and created the Dr. Tro's Medical Weight Loss Clinic, where he offers instead an integrative approach that includes health coaching, biometric remote monitoring, a self-guided weight loss curriculum, and an interactive online social support system through his Doctor Tro App. And we at Food Junkies are particularly interested in how these tools and his perspective have especially helped his patients that have food addiction. So welcome, Dr. Tro.
Yeah, thank you to be here. You know, I'm a huge fan. I've told you that so many times. We had you on the podcast, I think about, was it a year ago? Maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I loved your book. So I'm just happy to be here.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Well, I met you obviously at the Low Carb Podcast, but I met you in person at the Low Carb Boca conference this year, just a few months ago. And what I was really struck there was that you were able to integrate and introduce 2 whole days, like that's a third of that conference, to the low carb community. So clearly you're committed to the cause of food addiction. So we always like to start with the personal story first. So why don't you tell us, if you, as much as you're willing, about your story, your own personal story of maybe the 150 pound weight loss, and then essentially how did you find low carb personally, and then how did you make it happen professionally?
I'll give you the Cliff's Notes. You know, struggled with weight my whole life.
The elevator notes.
Yeah, the elevator notes. So the struggle with my weight my entire life. Parents were both obese, brothers, I have brothers are in the 400 pounds category, and myself was going in the same direction. At 13 years old, I remember sitting in my physician's office on my birthday, getting ready for my physical, because you get your physical on your birthday as a pediatric in the United States. And I remember sitting there, it seemed like at the time for hours. Probably in retrospect, maybe it was 45 minutes, but it seemed like hours. It might as well have been 2 hours. And there was a TV there, and there were some magazines, and then he puts me on a scale, and he looks at me, he looks at the number. At 13, I was 210 pounds, which is my weight now. And he looks at me and says, "You're just going to be like your family. You need to lose weight." And I remember walking out of there thinking to myself, who the hell is this guy? Like, he could have put a bike or a treadmill in his waiting room. And he's shaming me here, and I was so upset. And it was the first time I remember wanting to be a doctor. I remember thinking to myself, whatever this guy did, I could have done better. right? I could have done better. And at the time, I didn't understand the concept of food addiction, but I certainly understood I had a problem with food, and I didn't understand weight management, but I knew enough to say, this guy's approach of making me wait in a waiting room for hours, and, when there could have been something I could have exercised with, because that's what he told me to do, eat less and exercise. Otherwise, I'm going to end up like my family. What happened after that was I didn't eat for a month.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so I didn't eat for a month at the age of 13, and it solved my weight issues. I lost weight, and maybe I think for that month, I want to say in that whole period, I was vegan for a year. I lost maybe 50 pounds. I went on to run, and certainly orthorexia and maybe some anorexia, poor body image. These things that trouble youth, particularly in the midst of the obesity epidemic. So that's my primordial ooze. Fast forward, I gained all the way back and more. Throughout college, med school, got up to 350 pounds and board certified in internal medicine, bright in my field. I had 90th percentile on my board exam, and my wife is pregnant with our third kid. And this was actually before we're trying to get pregnant. And she's asks me if I'm going to be alive, if we have our third kid. And she played me. My wife is really smart, and she played to my ego, which I certainly have an ego, and she played to it. And she said, you're a smart doc. You diagnosed X, Y, and Z and these X, Y, and Z people. And, I found something in her family member of hers that other people missed. And, she's like, why can't you just figure out obesity, right? Why can't you figure out obesity? And that's where the rabbit hole, that's where like the real spark started to now reapproach weight loss. And then, like Dr. Tarman, I just did what any evidence-based doctor would have done. Show me all the interventional trials, show me all the side effects, show me all the benefits. What are the, show me all the data. So I'm like a little manic when it comes to things that I'm not manic. I get hyper-focused on fields that interest me. And that's been my way, throughout my life. And I probably read 2,000 original articles, at least 100 diet books that year, right? Including a textbook on obesity, probably 300 at this point, and several textbooks on obesity. And you go into the medical literature and it's just, I don't want to say they lied to us, Vera, but it's such a crock of shit. It's such a crock. Like every single interventional trial, low carb did better.
Yes.
And I had never eaten a steak at that point. Wasn't aware of my issues completely. I was just like, give me the drug that works better head to head. That's where I came to this. And so you go there and it's like, how the hell is every single interventional diet trial favoring low carb in some way? I had no skin in the game. I never cooked a steak to that point, never cooked a steak on a grill or whatever. We would eat meat, certainly as an Armenian, immigrant family, but, it was on the barbecue occasionally. It was a lot of like, chickpeas and pita bread and dried fruit and nuts and plants. I never in my life cooked a steak, right? Burgers on occasion, but not like, I just never cooked a steak. And that's like 9 years ago now. That was my primordial ooze. And the further you go down the rabbit hole, you understand some of the interests in nutrition and medicine, and you understand regulatory capture, and you understand, that the food companies essentially paid money to the American Academy of Family Practitioners and the American College of Sports Medicine, Gatorade, Coca-Cola. You understand the sort of group think that got us to where we are in our obesity epidemic, which is basically they've watched as it blossomed. So clearly, this is not like infections where we have treated it, and developed new antibiotics and have sort of mastered it. We, like let's say a streptococcus, right, or staph, I should say particular infections. We haven't mastered it. It's not heart disease where we have stents and sort of a high degree of understanding and, drugs that may, in acute heart attacks like aspirin that save lives and other antiplatelet medications. We have not even made a dent obesity.
Almost like psychiatry. There's not a lot that has happened. A lot has happened, but not a lot of results have happened, not significant.
Yeah, mental health, obesity, metabolic health, these have all blossomed. Depression, sleep disorders. I mean, you just can go on and on and on. So the thing is that if you look at the data, that's where low carb started. I was like, I just want what works.
Yes.
You know?
And I'm assuming you tried that on yourself first and learned how to cook your first steak.
Yeah, exactly. I just started low carb. I just wanted to be alive for my family. That was it. I wanted to be out of pain, out of prediabetes. I wanted to feel rested. I just wanted to feel good.
Okay.
But yeah, the deeper down the rabbit hole you go, the more you understand, the more the data you look at. And then you see, the things that happen next were, oh, you shouldn't eat low carb, you'll develop an eating disorder. Oh, you shouldn't do it because, it's just the calories. It's not about the carbs, it's going to affect your performance in the gym. Oh, it's going to increase your cholesterol. And each thing I've published a study on, each thing that has come at me, I published a case series on binge eating and food addiction. I published a case series on, cholesterol. I've published a case series on, sort of glycemia being related to carbohydrate restriction alone. So, I'm trying to make it so that the future doctors like me will be tooled with what I wish I had. That's my story. Pretty boring.
Okay. Well, but just to go back to your personal story, that enabled you 9 years ago to eventually lose 150 pounds, which you have kept off for how long? 9 years?
Yeah. So I started really trying to do something. Yeah, this was right out of residency. So that was 2013. Yeah. So yeah, it's been 9 years.
Okay. I mean, that's significant because so many people, probably people listening, have lost weight, but they just keep gaining it back again. But, you're one of the people who maintained that weight loss, presumably because you stayed on the low carb plan throughout.
Well, let me tell you, my journey has changed. So correct. I always approached this in a way, it first started with addressing hunger.
Okay.
Okay. Then it became addressing my hunger and my cravings.
Yes.
Then it became addressing hunger, cravings, and feelings of deprivation. Right? That was year 3. Then it became hungers, feelings of deprivation, cravings, feelings of deprivation, and social situations. Then it became hunger, cravings, feelings of deprivation, social situations, and managing my emotions. Right? So, when you say low carb, while that's true, we have the insight to know there's a lot more to it.
Yeah. So I think really what you're now starting to explain is how you developed your whole program like that, in that you realized over the years that you needed one more piece, the social piece, the social support piece, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and as time has gone on, and you see this probably, you get people who understood my brain's reward system.
Yeah.
When you understand the reward system for food, you can understand that it can disobey any paradigm. It can outmaneuver any diet. So there's general principles even within the low carb realm that I'm very cautious of.
Yes.
Low carb fruit it's not that I don't think they're healthy. I think low carb fruit is healthy. I think, dairy and cheese is healthy. And I think nuts are healthy. Although these foods I think are healthy, but all of them can make me eat more.
Yes.
Right. And so I acknowledge that my drive to eat likely cares very little about whatever diet I do.
Right. So I'm guessing that was in year 2 or 3. Once you got past the hunger and satiated the hunger, there was still a different type of hunger. And how did you then cotton on to, okay, this has got to do with my reward system, and dairy and nuts are not good for that reward system. How did you get to that place?
Oh, they're very good for the reward system. But
you know what I mean?
So I think when you start to observe your eating behavior, you see it. Like, what happens when I put cheese on a hamburger patty? Do I eat more or less? And just asking that question, is it giving me satiety or is it making me eat more? So what effect is this food having on me? And so that happened actually probably in the second year. I did some just self-experiments. I would fast all day, eat plain Greek yogurt. I'd fast all day, eat Greek yogurt with strawberries. I'd fast all day, eat Greek yogurt with dark chocolate. And I would see how much I would eat in that meal and how hungry I would be thereafter. Just sort of understand what are my vulnerabilities. Is it sweetener? Is it fat? Is it carbohydrate? Is it, what is it? And so I think self-experimentation was key. And then as you progress in the literature, I think it's also, it's all there. It's the reward systems are clear. It's carbs and fat. And it's also based on triggers, so it's just complicated. I know most people are looking for a simple thing. They're going to listen to this podcast. They're going to say, I'm a food junkie. I need help. And they're going to say, well, Tro said, don't do fat. And it's like, no, it's not, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the low carb diet is absolutely, in my opinion, the place to start.
Yes.
For years, then, you get these people and we know it. They come to my clinic. They say, I'm never going to eat meat. And I don't push meat on anybody. I didn't eat it for years. And I say, that's great. That's fine. And they go low carb. And 6 months later, a year later, they're sending you pictures of bacon and steaks. And so clearly the reward system has shifted, so they said they would never eat meat in their life. And now they're eating meat. But yeah, I'm always learning. I learned from you. I learned from, Eric Westman and Mark Cucuzella. And I learned from, Rob Sybis. And I learned from Gerhardt. And I learned, we learned from each other. That's it.
Do you want to tell us? I do want to get your opinion about some of the more standard obesity info. But since we're on the topic of what you did with yourself, so what is your approach now? So obviously food is the first thing and low carb is the first place to go. So what do you do with the patient when they come in? Because you have all these tools that I had mentioned in the intro that are like, wow, that's a lot. Your app and your...
Yeah. So let's see. I try to think of it like, okay, what would I want if I was alone, struggling, voracious appetite, obese, shamed, guilty? What would I want? Right? I would want to have a medical team that is available to me at any point, right? And a support group to call upon. What else would I want? I'd want to be able to see everything without shame and judgment and discuss it with my medical team. And I would also be mindful of the fact that my tendency is to hide from myself and to feel shame and guilt and to withdraw. And so I'd want things and tools to get me out of there, right? I'd want a way to connect, whether it's medically, whether it's socially, whether it's mental health or counseling or whatever it is. So the whole approach has been, how do we reach people and make weight loss and managing food relationships ridiculously easy, right? And how that looks like, I can talk for hours about this, but when you come in, when you start with our clinic, we're there's all the tricks of the trade, which I'm sure you know, Vera. It's like you want to use every ounce of their energy. When they get to the point where they conquer the shame and guilt and isolation to hit the call, get help now button, they call or whatever, you want to immediately be able to provide them something. And waiting to see me a month later, 2 months later, or one of my partners is just insanity. So asynchronous education is so critical for this because we're going to help you right now. Right? You can get a podcast, you can get the app, you can start, we have modules, you can start right now. Okay?
With the education. Yeah.
And then there's frameworks of stuff. We're a medical practice. We're going to want to get your medical records. We're going to want to find out more about you. We're going to collect your old labs, get new labs, blah, 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 all this stuff. But then while you're waiting for all the medical stuff, you shouldn't have to wait for the counseling and the coaching. Right. So then within a week, we're onboarding you. We're getting you, a scale, a blood pressure cuff, a blood sugar meter, so that we can just collect data, understand what is going on, what the water weight, the blood sugar fluctuations, the heart rate, what is going on with you medically. And you don't have to use any of them. Some people don't want to use the scale. That's fine. Some people don't want to use the blood sugar meter. That's fine. We really encourage the blood sugar meter because it's such a tool to pinpoint the toxicity of our food environment, but also ripping out a lot of my eating is subconscious. So how do I become conscious of subconscious things? So it's a great tool to just empower people with data. What has the world done to you? What is your subconscious doing to you? And bring that person the data. So patient empowerment is really the key. So these tools are all about empowerment. Can we get you the info now? Can we get you self sort of reflection tools that don't elicit shame and guilt and are more real time? You could do the right thing on a scale for a month and the scale just spits at you, but you can use blood glucose meters in real time to assess how much the environment is attacking you, how much your own stress is attacking you, your sleeplessness is attacking you, you can use it as a great lifestyle feedback tool. And then, getting people, vulnerable people, immediate education, an immediate community, come to our meetings. We have a meeting every day. There's a meeting every day, come to a meeting, right? And just, and they're topic based. So they're rotating and we have curriculums, but just connect, right? And then get the coaching, the one-on-one coaching, which is so critical, which is basically unraveling the matrix that's keeping you stuck. And then the medical side, which, is just more, there's more red tape to get there, So,
you can get pretty quickly some good results with like blood pressure response and insulin response, like if you're eating properly. So I would imagine that getting a pretty quick, even some weight loss will be huge motivators in that first month.
Yeah. So I think just not wasting anybody's time, right? So like, how do we make most? So they've committed, they want to, right? Everybody wants to, but they've overcome whatever obstacle to pick up the phone. And so how are you being a service to that person, right? In that minute, not a month later when it's convenient for you as a doctor, right? In that minute, how are you a service to them? Because, it should be easier. It should be, this is an epidemic, a mental health and metabolic health epidemic.
Are you finding all of these tools are effective, and how effective?
Immensely effective.
What are some obstacles?
Well, let's just think
efficacy first.
So, we've measured the efficacy. We've done, retrospective chart reviews. So employers hire us to do our program to their employees.
Really?
And so we don't.
You've got to get that happening in Canada. Yeah,
we're working on it. Just so you know, we're working on it. We're working with a big telemedicine company to make that happen in Canada, and we'll probably leverage you. So we'll definitely leverage you if you're interested. So they came to us, and I didn't know, people listen to your podcast.
Yeah.
They like you. They already know you. They read your book. They read your audiobook like I did, or listened to your audiobook, and they picked you. Well, what if they don't pick you?
Right.
Right? What if they don't pick you? And so I didn't know with this company if we were going to have an effect. I know, you have an effect on the people coming to you. It. If when we did our retrospective reviews on our cohorts in our office, we had performed very well. But when the employer came to me, I was like, I don't know. So we initially took on a small pilot program, 15 patients. This is like 2 years ago. And it's now, 200 or 300, I don't know, a lot more people. And I didn't know the effect we'd have. And they said, can you help us? And I said, well, why don't we actually collect data and see that we can help, if we can help on a systematic way. These are construction workers, factory line people, laptop people, office people. There's a bunch of different people. You're a huge 10,000 person company, but I don't know whether I can affect just a random person who's not selecting me. So we did the program in 15 people, and the results were stellar. It was exactly in line with how people did in our clinic, and it was completely remote. 38 pounds of weight loss in 6 months. A1C dropped by 1.1. We use the percentage, and the blood pressure dropped about 17 points. And this is while deprescribing. Wow. And we calculated it was about 1.5 medications per patient of deprescription. And the patients were ecstatic. They raved about it. But what was interesting was the cost savings. We didn't cost the company anything.
Wow.
They make money on us. I think they make money on us. So the first thing that they said after the first 6 months was, how many more can you take?
Right. Wow. Because they're not paying for medications anymore. They're not paying for surgery anymore.
Correct. Well, I'm not sure we could quantify all of the hospitalizations that are limited, the doctor's visits, the work days lost from being healthy. We can't quantify it. We just quantified the deprescription.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
Let me ask you a question. In that work that you did with the people that did not choose you, because they know you, they know your approach. I don't know if you use the dirty word food addiction or sugar or addiction, but in the benign or the population that doesn't get that concept of addiction, how did you get them to not eat the foods that would make them want to eat more and more and more?
Yeah. So again, it comes back to, what is a vulnerable population need? Empowerment. So empower them. So not using the dirty word. We use the dirty word every day, first visit.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Every day, first visit. Hey, here's a quick way to screen for an issue with food that has nothing to do with nutrition. That has nothing to do with a nutritional plan, that will not benefit from a nutritional plan. Because food addiction will not benefit from a nutritional plan. It benefits from a comprehensive plan. Right, with satiating food, that happens to be easier with satiating food, right? So we debate this back and forth. My program director, Amy Igus, she gave a talk at the food addiction workshop, and she's lost 220 pounds and kept it off now for a similar amount of time. And we debate this about using the food addiction word on day 1. On day, week 4, on week 8, week 10, when should we use it? And I'm like, no, I want to screen for it right away. I want to know right away. And when you're dealing with excessive morbidity and people who have yo-yo dieted, right? If you have excessive morbidity, if you're literally suffering because of your eating and you've struggled with it consistently, yo-yo dieted, and you're selecting those people, you have a 99% addiction rate. So we have become more sophisticated in how we determine, if somebody needs a nutrition only message, which is a lot of people. A lot of people, don't have psychological distress and shame and guilt, and they don't have that, related to food. And maybe they're just harmful users, and a nutrition only message works. But for the most,
realize that pop or soda is unhealthy, and that eating all that naan bread is not a good idea. But once they get it, they do it.
100%. I mean, I just saw somebody who came to me, 310 pounds, young guy, really nice guy, high triglycerides, and he's drinking 4 or 5 sodas a day. And I was like, you don't need me. Like, I'm expensive. I'm going to take up a lot of your time. Just quit the soda. Wear the CGM so you see what the soda's doing to you. Quit the soda, switch the diet for now, come back, and if you need more help, and it comes back, he quits soda, he's like, he lost 15 pounds. I'm like, okay, well, same thing now. When instead of when you're going to Chinese for lunch, ask them to put the sauce on the side, ask for 2 portions of protein and 1 portion or 2 portions of vegetables, and he does that, and he's like, Doc, I'm down 50 pounds in 5 months, and I'm like, great. Like, so, and he's not sneaking food like I was. He doesn't have intense shame and guilt. He's not eating before he goes to a function and then eating at that function too, so he doesn't have that. He's just, happy-go-lucky and, doesn't know any better.
Hey guys, Molly here. I just wanted to let you know that Sweet Sobriety is offering a new workshop in April 2023. You Are Not What You Weigh, Getting Over the Scale live workshop will be presented to you by Bethany Mazrou. Bethany uses her Master of Social Work to coach you through a recovery plan that works for you. She offers high challenge, accountability, authenticity, and lots of grace on this road to recovery. This workshop is for you if you suspect you might be giving too much weight to your weight, if you have ever allowed the scale to have power over your mood, day, actions, or confidence, if you're tired of giving too much thought or priority to your weight, or if you just want to know more about the BMI, weight and health, weight stigma, weight bias, and what weight loss does to us physically and mentally. Over 4 pre-recorded video sessions, Bethany dives deep into the research and her own personal story, making this a very practical exploration of the concept of body weight as a measure. The homework after each video is designed to help you get the most out of this workshop. Bethany has also provided a list of resources, books, podcasts, Instagram accounts, meditations, and more to help you explore concepts from the workshop even further. You can also join in weekly live group sessions to share what you're learning and to ask questions. And these sessions are held on Wednesdays, April 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. UK. Sessions will be recorded and replay will be made available to you. Check the show notes for more information.
Now, if I can just steer you to the other topic I really want to get to, and that is the traditional obesity approach and what your take is on that. So you kind of diverted or moved away from that, but you're still working in that world. So what's your take on the medications and the surgical options? Because you're still working in that world, right? And especially today. So I hear you saying now, look, I'm not going to waste any time when a guy is 400 pounds and he's got high triglycerides. We're just going to tell him on day one addiction. But in other obesity clinics, they're going to say, day one, we don't have time to fool around. Get you on that Ozempic right away. Get you on something right away. So how do you work with that, those expectations and that basically standard of practice that's emerging?
I ask the patient what they want. What do you want? Like, it's so simple, Hey, well, look, you have to understand, when I say we tell them what they want, it's not a 7-minute visit where they get, here's your balloon, here's your thing, and here's a diet, right? They're spending half an hour just onboarding with my clinic, downloading the apps, learning the modules, learning what to do, getting connected with their smart equipment. They have another hour before they ever see me, literally just to go over the, obesity trap, like the shame, guilt, calories, discipline, self-blame, powerlessness spiral that most people find themselves in. And once they understand the systems of control, then we start to figure out, do you have food addiction or not?
Yes.
Right? Okay. So once they understand the basics of sort of the food matrix, so to speak, or the obesity trap, we call it, then now you have an empowered patient. And what they do then, a lot of times I'll wait for the lab work to have that discussion next, which is, so we'll get the lab work and, things may be critical. Like you may have a calcium score of 2000 and an A1C of 9 and kidney functions that are damaged, right? A kidney, and so you may not have time. You may not have time because your end organs are suffering to the point of no return, right? Or limited return.
Yes.
So I think if I have a sign of, severe end organ issue, then, neuropathy, nephropathy, significant heart disease, then I'll be, I may suggest like, hey, what do you like? Most of modern medicine would give you a drug right now and with their eyes closed. What do you want to do? And then you sort of leave it up to the patient. And I'd say our rate of, I've probably referred to bariatric surgery 10 times, in 5 years. So, and it happens. There's people who just put, and it was the right choice. And I have somebody who I'm going to refer now. We've talked about it as a clinic. We've exhausted all of what we can do. I cannot erase being the CEO of 3 massive companies and having morbid, severe obesity. And that's, resistant to even drugs. Like I cannot, 5 kids that are, with depression, anxiety. I can't take these things away. So I think it's just individual. I mean, wouldn't you agree? Like,
yes. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not really. I was going to say I'm not really in that position where people are coming to me about asking about surgery, but medications for sure. Because now there's so much excitement in the obesity world, the bariatric world, about the new meds that have just come out and how you can lose all sorts of weight and even people who aren't obese are wanting to go on these things. Like it's just
bad news. So
what's your take on that? And the fact that in my mind, it's becoming a standard of practice, which means I now have to defend myself if I don't want to prescribe this stuff first.
Yeah. I mean, look,
anyway, your opinion.
I'm going to tell you, no, I'm going to be very honest and open here. Yeah. We see the failures. So, this is new for the world, but we've been using GLPs here for 5 years, right? Off-label and on-label, and very rare, again, maybe 5%, right? Maybe 5%. But
5% what? That actually go for it?
that actually are using it in my clinic. Yeah, maybe 5%, maybe 10% of patients, maybe. That's to be generous, right?
Is that because you're so persuasive about your approach to try the Dr. Tro approach first?
I think it's because people who choose me and our messaging is we want to get you off medications if that's what you want.
Yes. Okay.
So I think some of that has to do with the fact that this is, deep prescription is what we, our area of. So but at the same time, I mean, they know that, hey, my life goal is to get people off of meds. So when I recommend the med, it's because I actually think that, we've exhausted all other options, or that the benefits outweigh the risk to such a high degree that they should think about it, right? But in terms of the standard of care, I mean, look, we have failure. We have people who've failed high-dose GLPs, and it doesn't help. We see them. They come to us.
So just for people who don't know what that means, those are the new drugs like Mounjaro or Ozempic or all of these new things that have just come out.
Yeah.
Well, they're new in Canada. They're not so new in the States. We're always a couple of years behind you.
Yeah. I think I'll tell you, we've had some great successes. People have been low carb, lost weight, kept it off, but just had an extra 50 pounds and it helped.
Had that lost 50 pounds.
And so all I can say is I have people who are, also sort of end stage type 2 diabetes, where they're really just not making enough insulin. And I think those people have seen some benefit too in my practice. But for run of the mill sort of weight loss, food addiction, even severe obesity, class 3 obesity, we rarely use it. Less than 10%, I'd say.
But with the experience that you have, and you have more than we do, I just have some questions that I would really like to know. Is it possible that you can succeed on it and then in a year or two develop some kind of tolerance? And so then
100%. We holiday the minute it stops working. We take people off, we titrate it off, and we stop it. Right? Because at that point, it's all it's all harm, no benefit.
Yes.
So we may reattempt it, but oftentimes I'll ask them to take a holiday and focus on something else in that time and focus on some of the other things. We've had several patients come off GLPs and they've done exceedingly well. We've had other patients who, just the hunger comes back and the lifestyle hasn't changed. And, let's go back to that patient. I'm not taking away his 2 big CEO positions and his 4 kids that are still stressful and is just being pulled in every direction. And he's last. And, it's like that he doesn't drink and smoke and he doesn't go have affairs and he, needs some sort of outlet. And I can't change all that.
So would it be in terms of, I know, Chrissy, you wanted to know, if there was a place with our population where we could use it judiciously, would it be fair to say it's a good bridge for maybe that person that needs that extra little nudge, but that they have to do some kind of Dr. Tro plan or some version of that here in Canada, or else they'll just go back to square one when they get off of it, if they develop a tolerance?
My fear so I don't fear my patients. I don't fear its use in my patients because we're so connected to them, yes. Right? It's different from a conventional practice. So it's not the same. I don't fear it in my patients. What I fear is people not really ready to change and getting prescribed a drug, yes. And then it working and then it not work. Right. And so
inevitably that happens, right? A tolerance does develop.
100%. It doesn't work the same. The nausea goes away.
Yeah.
So the nausea goes away at month 6 to 9. Okay. And then you're left with whatever habits you've accumulated in that time and whatever minimal hormonal impact it has over the nausea. So the nausea is probably the main effect, in my opinion.
Right. So I'm just going to call it out, be blunt here. So basically, how it works for the patient, their experience is, I feel too sick to really eat a lot, so I'm not going to eat a lot. But
a subtle sickness, and non-concern of food. Yeah.
Right. Yes, but I can have my cake and eat it too, because I can have a little. I don't want much because it's a subtle effect. And eventually that subtle effect will be removed. And because I'm still having my cake, it all comes back. You're the whole weight.
Yeah, I think particularly if there's food addiction, I've had some people, I mean, some of the ways people have described it, I'll give you the words that they've used. I have a piece with food. This is what normal feels like. I'm nauseous. I'm vomiting. I wish I never took it. So I think get incredibly nauseous days 2 to day 4, and then it wanes. I just don't want to eat. If I eat too much, I belch and I burp and it doesn't feel good. Whatever keto has done, I had a doctor tell me this, whatever keto has done, it gave me 5 times that. So a doctor who I prescribed it to. So I think, I've seen all sides of it. I've never taken it. Let's put it that way. I struggle with food addiction, obesity, prediabetes, diabetes in my family. And I certainly came from prediabetes. I haven't yet taken it. Do I envy their peace that they report for 6 months? I do. If I was really lost and really sick, I just had a patient this week, kidney disease, A1C of 9.9, a calcium score of 600, which means there's significant heart disease. So I said, look, you don't have time. I mean, we can, and who's been through all the different programs of all of our friends, Rob Sivis, fasting method, Verta. I mean, it's gone through it all. So in a case like that, I just try to empower them and say, you tell me what you want to do, but this is what I would do if you're family.
Right. No, and I think that's really important. I've certainly worked with clients who have been on Ozempic and gone off it because of IVF, but we've already been working together for a long time, got them food addiction stable, and the weight hasn't come back on. I've also had clients who I've worked with over a year and they haven't seen the weight release that they were hoping, and they have problems with their knees. And this potentially could be a beneficial tool in that case to get them to a place where, they can have the surgery they want and just live a better quality of life. And so I really appreciate your take on that 100%.
That's a huge one. I used it in a case. So one of the cases I had was exactly that. We talk about organs, but I didn't talk about quality of life. Incredible knee pain, incredible back pain, rip-roaring diabetes. I mean, if somebody has diabetes and really morbidity or quality of life issues, then I sort of say that's the ideal person. And to be honest, those are the people who come off the easiest. They don't want to be on medication. They want to be happy and healthy. And other people I've seen do really well. So going back to that employee wellness program, let's say we have 100 patients, right? We stopped as many GLPs as we started, right? So we were GLP neutral, meaning we were Ozempic neutral. And the people who did really well, they had diabetes. They just didn't know about low carb. They didn't know about this other way. They had food addiction. They addressed it. They understand it. They know it, right? And those people came off GLP, fantastic, no problem. And who did we put on? Somebody with prediabetes, who's got a young kid, whose father is ill, just a lot of mental health issues, and getting treatment for that and counseling, but just can't mount the sort of effort despite every ounce, and now that person is down 40 pounds and exercising every day. And, pretty soon we're going to say, let's taper off. And I know the discussion is going to be, don't take this away from me. But so I think, judicious use will be needed. And I think we've done that, and we showed it to this employer who keeps coming back with more patients for us. So we must be doing something good for somebody somewhere.
Great. That's great. We don't want to, we've only got so much time left. Christy, do you want to take it on about the podcast?
Yeah. So Tro, tell us a little bit more about the podcast and where do you want to go with it from here? Do you have it?
How did it start?
Yeah. How did it start? And where do you hope it goes?
So we started 5 years ago when me and Brian were talking with Jason and Megan from Dr. Jason Fung and Megan Ramos about sort of being a little bit more vocal. And this was before the era of podcasts. And we still are. We're in the top 10 of medicine pretty regularly. So we have somewhere around 300 episodes, and we continue to remain in the top 10 of medicine. And we have a mix of people, just like you guys do, food addicts, alcohol addicts, porn addicted. I mean, we've had, people couples who've lost weight together, scientists, doctors, every side of the diet spectrum, vegan, keto, and calories in, calories out. We've had them all on, and amazing people like Nina Teicholz and her book Big Fat Surprise, and Gary Taubes and Eric Westman, who Vera works with. And we've had Vera on. I mean, so
that was a bucket list for me.
Yeah, we've had all the luminaries, and so it's been, honestly, I'm going to be it does two things for me. One, it gives me a way to reach people for free. I'm expensive. I can't see everybody. And I know the suffering in the world. So, and the app, there's a lot of parts of the app that are for free. And so for me, it's like serves as a marketing tool. Yes, but we don't really do anything. We don't have commercials. We don't do any commercials. We've made a point not to have one commercial. So although people have asked us, we've taken no money from any commercial entity. Yeah, people hear my voice, I guess, but at this point, I don't need it. And why do I do it? Because, we need sort of physician voices out there who aren't captured by the regulatory environment that most doctors are captured in. And people don't understand that. It's very hard. It seems like nebulous. It seems tinfoil hatty. But most doctors don't have time to think critically, and they don't have time to think outside of the box. And the easiest way out for them is to prescribe a medication. So how do we educate these doctors? And Vera, that's why I'm so passionate about the SMHP. And that's why I've been passionate about LowCARB MD podcast, because it's the doctors who are listening and calling me and saying, oh my God, thank you. Yeah. Right. And the SMHP, the purpose of the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, it started when I went to Doug Reynolds and I said, we need a tribe for doctors, health coaches, mental health counselors, dietitians, and nurse practitioners and PAs so that we can educate them, have a common language and network.
Yes.
We need a diabetes curriculum, mental health curriculum, food addiction curriculum, type 1 curriculum. We need to make these curriculums and we need to standardize them, and we need to educate physicians with CMEs. And so the goal of the podcast has been, at this point, I view it as charity. It's fun, and I get to meet awesome people like you two. And it's a way to reach people for free. We don't take a dime from commercials. We've not ever taken a dime from any commercial interests. And the point is to reach people. And so where it goes, I don't know, maybe one day we'll get our act together when we just throw stuff on YouTube now. We're not you guys are much more polished than we are. So whoever you got managing your guys' stuff, just call them and tell them we need help. So, because we're not as polished as you guys.
I don't know. You're pretty polished. I was pretty thrilled to be a guest on your team. But anyway, do you have a dream guest that you had besides me and some of the luminaries that you mentioned? Was there somebody that stood out in your mind or somebody that you would really like to get on the podcast?
Yeah, I would like to, not to because I like them, because I want to disparage them, because I want to disparage, Peter Attia a little bit. I want to disparage even Neeson, the world famous cardiologist. I want to disparage Dayspring, who's, I want to take these people who are so fundamentally entrenched in dogma and tell them what they've missed and what they got wrong. And if you can add Walensky and Fauci here. Oh my God, I'm sorry. All your listeners are going to hate me, but just not that these people aren't smart and amazing people, but when you get certain things so fundamentally wrong, or even partially wrong, we need to be able to get better. The only way we get better as a profession is to admit our shortcomings and mistakes, that other people admit their shortcomings and mistakes and improve and don't stay entrenched in dogma. Happens when we don't admit mistakes. And so if you ask me what my strongest thing is, I'm dead set on changing medicine. We're in 50 states. All 50 states, we have a presence. Myself, we have Dr. Laura Buchanan, who's with us. We're going to have another PA and another doctor who join us this coming year. We have 3 health coaches, 2 personal trainers. We have a mental health counselor, and that'll grow. And I want to change medicine. I want big goals. I want to end food addiction and diabetes, like obesity.
Right.
I want to end them.
Which means countering the effects of big pharma and big food and their influence on medicine.
Correct. And people hear that and they say big medicine and big food, and it's not conspiracy. And I'm not saying these people are like plotting against you. No. I'm just saying that they probably don't care about you. Not that they can't help you.
You, the patient, you mean?
Yeah, you, exactly. You, the patient, the person listening to this. There's some marvelous things in the processed food industry. Quest Brands, for example, I think is an improvement over the conventional. I have no stock in Quest. I have no stock in them, but they have helped my patients go from pizza to an egg-based pizza, and a low-carb-based pizza. It's not. I don't eat that, right? I don't eat that now, but I ate that at one point, right? And I wouldn't have survived without methadone, so to speak, when it came to food.
Yeah.
So there's some beautiful parts of industry. I don't eat lilies. I don't eat lilies now. I don't. They trigger me, and I would just eat an entire bag. Lily's chocolate, right? But they have helped my patients with diabetes address their cravings as they overall improve their diet. So the thing is industry, I'm not against industry. I'm against industry. Big food is like, they want to make you a recurring customer, both pharma and big food. But I'm not against them, but I am against them. I'm not against our public health leaders who got nutrition wrong, who got COVID wrong, who got regulatory drug approvals wrong. I'm not against them. I just think we need to erase them and start over. I'm not against processed food companies. I'd like to erase them and start over. So I'm not against medicine. I want to erase them and start over.
So with those big goals in mind, do you feel optimistic about the future of bariatric medicine, or there's still a big slog ahead?
Let's put it this way. When you're playing poker and you have like the best hand?
Yeah.
And you have the best hand and it's going to happen eventually. Right?
Okay.
So I'm very optimistic.
Okay.
I'm very optimistic because I think we're holding the best hand. Food addiction and metabolic health, addressing that, and it's mental health, addressing these three things.
Yes.
If you address people's hunger, cravings, feelings of deprivation, social situations, and emotions, they have no food issue.
I totally agree. You got all the angles. And isn't your sweet sobriety an attempt to do the very same thing?
Yeah, it sounds like we have a very similar plan. I love that you address that. We have those same modules about stress management, emotional eating, self-compassion. It's not. It's about the food, but it's not about the food. The food is like 10%. Yeah. It's our life that we're trying to use food to escape from or numb out or soothe with. That is what we need to address. And I'm so grateful, Tro, that you have a program that does this in an app where people can access it immediately, because it's exactly what you said.
Can I tell you one thing I wanted with my app? So I thought to myself, going back to the sitting in that waiting room at 13 years old when I was obese and he told me to lose weight and I sat there for an hour and I said, why couldn't you put a bike in here? I've wanted a binge eating hotline since I started this, and we made it in the app.
Wow.
We made it in the app. You just hit a button and it's basically a get help now.
If you're on the verge of a binge, go to this app.
Yeah, go to it. And it's powered by volunteers, okay? Because we told people to text our office or to call our office. They didn't, because they said they didn't want to bother us. So we got volunteers. We got 40 volunteers.
Suicide hotline, but it's a binge hotline. I love it.
Right. So we may have wanted it for so long, but nobody called us because they said they didn't want to bother us.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They didn't want to bother. So you know what? We have a volunteer-sponsored Get Help Now area. You just go in and you get help now, right? And completely free. Completely free. So and it's just simple things like this. Like, why can't we have a treadmill in the gym or a bike in the gym? Why can't we have a Get Help Now feature? Why can't we get, near real time? Why do I have to suffer for weeks on end with shame and guilt? I want a team that understands me and can help me a day later. A minute later, in real time. Because, Vera, our jobs would be replaced if the medical team could meet the patient in their time of need.
Yes.
If we could get medical and psychological, metabolic care to a patient the minute they needed it, the obesity epidemic is solved. So how do we do that? We're all the way out here, but our medical approach has to get to somebody like in an instant. And we need to think radically different.
Yes.
No, I'm a big, sorry, you got me. I know you were like looking to end and here I am yapping. You probably.
No, I love how fired up and passionate you are about this because it really like lights up that same fire and passion in us. And I think certainly in Vera's Facebook group, she has 20,000 people and like responds to most of them when they post something like, I'm struggling. It's like, okay, what about this? What about this? And that is exactly what you said, meeting people where we're at. And that is the care that is required with food when we're surrounded by it 24/7 and stress and emotions and the whole package of everything. So Tro, can you tell us what is next for you?
For you. Yeah.
For me.
Other than changing the world.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean, that's it. So I'm working on research projects now. We have a big research project with Stanford that's going to be a bombshell when it comes out. We're hiring doctors and mental health counselors and nurse practitioners and PAs. We want to make care in the basically entire United States, great metabolic care, basically at your fingertips. And then we're working with a big company in Canada. Hopefully that'll go somewhere. We have a lot of things, I'm on the board for the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. I'm talking at Denver and medical conferences, another one in Puerto Rico. I mean, I'm just trying to, and trying to enjoy my family. And, I got 3 beautiful kids and a wife. My wife is a food addict's nightmare. So my wife owns a company that makes low-carb baking mixes. So they make low-carb baking mixes and don't consider her food safe, in my opinion. I consider it safe. It's better than Betty Crocker and whatever's out there. And look, she's done an amazing service to my patients, because now they have an easy way to cook stuff. And, that's it. I'm just trying to put my head down, not get in trouble.
Awesome. And you know what? We certainly work with clients where the harm reduction approach is best and does feel manageable for them, lets them start this journey or supports them when things get too hard. And I don't have time to make everything from scratch all the time in this busy world we live in. And so, I absolutely appreciate those products as well. So we do have a signature question, and it is, if you could tell a younger version of Tro something about obesity or food addiction, what would it be?
That 13-year-old poor guy sitting in the doctor's office.
Man, you really hit me. I'd probably say 2 things you need to know are never give up. And then every time you feel shame and guilt, it really means you need help. You need to figure something out. You need to, there's something to learn. And so I think those would be the 2 things.
Thank you so much, Tro. So powerful, your message. And thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And with your passion. It's wonderful.
I'm trying. Yeah, gets me in trouble, though.
Thanks for joining us this week on Food Junkies, Recovery from Food Addiction. Make sure to join our Facebook group, Sugar Free for Life support group, I'm Sweet Enough. You can subscribe to our show in iTunes or Stitchers. That way you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Dr. Tarman's book, Food Junkies, which is available on Amazon. If you have any additional questions, both Molly and Clarissa are food addiction professionals and work one-on-one with clients. You can find their websites and email addresses in the show notes. Be sure to tune in every Friday when our new episodes drop. As Vera loves to say, the power is ours.